запрошую до слова Жіля Ер'яра Дюброя, також одного із провідних експертів NTW, Nuclear Transparency Watch. Жіль сам із Франції, він очолює дослідницьку групу Моталіс, а також є членом дорадчої групи Анкрі, яка тут уже неодноразово звучала. Поясню ще раз, можливо, хтось не зрозумів, це французька асоціація місцевих інформаційних комісій. І це така структура, яка, власне, займається діалогом усіх заінтересованих сторін. Я попросила Жиля розповісти трошки про французький досвід аварійної готовності та реагування, власне, з акцентом на залучення громадськості. І Жиль, який, як і багато французів, є в глибині душі філософом, погодився розповісти про філософію, яка лежить в основі цього процесу. Жиль, слово вам.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be able to have a word now. I introduce myself. I've been presented, excuse me, by Zoriana, but I wanted to add the fact that my very first engagement in nuclear affairs is from 1990, because I was involved as a researcher to study the consequences of the Chernobyl accident precisely in Ukraine. I made surveys in the field, meeting with the local population in order to understand and to develop an understanding of what the scale of a nuclear accident and the consequences for the population. And after I've been working for more than 20 years in Belarus on a program of rehabilitation of the living conditions. So this first short presentation is to just introduce the spirit and the way has been introduced the participation of the population in the nuclear decisions in France. So first of all, I will just review quickly the reason of this societal participation. It must be underlined the fact that the very reason that is supporting the idea of engaging the public is in order to improve the safety. It is not to develop it's not just a legal right, it's also a very reason that engaging local people, engaging society is a way to take better decisions and to protect better people, their health and the environment. This is, of course, a conclusion of the report of the Diet of Japan after the Fukushima accident, that at the very reason, the origin of this accident was the lack of transparency. So nuclear safety does not just involve a high commitment of operators and regulators. The existence of institutional and regulatory framework is necessary, but it's not enough. Societal vigilance on the monitoring of the safety of nuclear activity is required. And I will quote here a few extracts of a document which has been issued by EIEA about safety culture. Surprisingly, this document is really putting people at the heart of safety building. I quote, it is written, substantive stakeholder communications contribute to the safe operation of nuclear facilities. Active involvement of stakeholders in nuclear issues can provide a substantial improvement of safety. So it's not here a matter of leaving high operators, executive, or even from the administration alone. It's a matter of really exerting societal vigilance. Operators and regulators confronted with questions and concern from the stakeholders may have to re-examine the basis for previous discussions. So you can see that engaging people is a quality insurance procedure. I continue. Investigating such questions provides clarity, prevents complacency and may expose unforeseen problem areas. And we can really give many, many examples of this, where people have really pointed out the weak point in the systems of safety. Stakeholder involvement may result in attention to issues that otherwise might escape scrutiny. Transparency increases the motivation of individuals and institutions to meet their responsibility. So you see, it's a whole system, and in France, we used to introduce the safety culture as based on 4 pillars. One pillar, of course, is the implementer. The implementer is the first in charge of the safety, but you can see also the regulator and also the experts of the regulator, but on the right you see the civil society. In the philosophy of safety in France, we have this idea that society is a key dimension of safety. Now, when one wants to implement information and participation of the public, of course, it depends on the nature of the activity. It's not the same to develop transparency, for instance, of the management of hard waste. It's not the same than implementing safety to follow up the nuclear safety of operated nuclear power plants. It's different from the issue of nuclear emergency and post-accident and long-term management. So you see, here I will just give an overview of some important aspects of this. Is there a microphone that I can have in hand?
Будь ласка, принесіть перенесений мікрофон.
Because I just want to move there to show you some aspects. Here you have a picture which is, it's not, in fact it is presenting a picture regarding radioactive waste management, but it is, thank you. Can I use it? Yes. In fact, it is just the same that you must have in hand. You see, we have here the decision-making system is here, with different phases in the decision, from, let's say, concept phase to more operational phase. This is true for emergency, but also for nuclear safety. But what is important is that we have a governance system where we have international standards, for instance, EIA or ICRP for radiation protection. Then we may have in Europe, in the Union, we may have European legislations, not everywhere, but in some areas. And then we have the national level where we have the frameworks. And then we implement at the local level. Now, if you look at the way civil society can really intervene, bring its views, get information. You have here the local people, and the local people have to be able to enter the local decisions. But as soon as there are decisions that are taken at upper level of decisions, they have to be represented at the national level. And then at national level, they have to organize themselves in order to intervene into the national decision-making. And it is the same, and it is the very reason we have built NTW at the EU level, because more and more, some decisions are taken at upper level of decision. So you can see it's a whole thing. It's not only that people should involve at local level. And in addition, to make it easier for people to enter the decision-making process, we need to enter the legal framing of the decision. For instance, we must create opportunities for people to engage themselves at the various stages of the decision-making process. For instance, if we have a national plan for emergency management, it must be written in the law that the public must be consulted as soon as this plan is issued. And if this plan is reviewed every 3 years, then again, it should be an opportunity for public to examine the plan and to make
to make to bring his views in, to voice his concerns. And maybe you are not aware of the Arus Convention, which Ukraine has signed. The Arus Convention is based on 3 pillars, but the two first ones are right of information, right of participation. As soon as society is entering or bringing views into a certain decision-making process, the Arus Convention states that its views has to be duly taken into account. That means people who take the decisions must demonstrate that they have taken into account the views of society. So in France, we have at the local level, since about nearly 40 years, has been created at the initiative of the civil society, local commission of information around each nuclear installation. Those local committees are gathering together, NGOs, local elected people from the municipalities, people from the oblast, from the district, equivalent in France, and they all discuss and they investigate, they make investigation, they review the safety, they review the emergency planning, and they check if it is real, if it works or not. And they have some means to help them. Usually they have one person that is the secretary of this group. They can also sometimes have budget to make counter-expertise. Of course, this is the best case that I introduced you. Sometimes they are lacking money, sometimes the people are not very efficient, but we have this framework, and this framework has been tested for about 40 years, and it has proved to be efficient. In those groups, we have people that are no position vis-à-vis the nuclear. We have people that are clearly against nuclear. We have people that are pro-nuclear again. But what they share is an interest for safety. What they promote together is safety. Now, those CLEs are organized at local level. They are also a federation that is supported by the public authorities. This federation is created at the national level. And those at national level, the federation of the local commission have created permanent group to address specific issues. There is a permanent group, for instance, for emergency and post-accident management. There is a permanent group for nuclear waste management, for nuclear safety, etc. And those groups, precisely, they work together and they are able to address the national level and the planning of the authorities. And you know, it's a long time to achieve this, because we really need to negotiate, not only, for instance, to be able to enter one decision, but also on a permanent basis to include in the legislation the principle of public consultation. That is very important, because as soon as you have the principle of public consultation at the various stages of the decision making, then you can, I'm talking here of the people, they can really organize themselves efficiently. Well, I give you an example. It's not always easy. For instance, in the last 5 years, everybody was talking in the nuclear village of lifetime extension of NPPs. Because, well, we don't have so much money, we can review a little bit the safety and we will operate 20 years or 30 years again. So there was a big fight in France because initially the safety authority says, of course, this is not a big decision, it's a question of safety, it's our decision, thank you very much. We will see if we will accept the continuation of the nuclear plant, but there is no need to consult people. On the contrary, people, they claim their right to be consulted, and also they claim their right to have impact studies, because when you had opened a nuclear power plant 30 years ago, today the situation can be very different. And for instance, as I mentioned this morning, you may discover that you have 1.5 million people that are living in the vicinity of this nuclear plant, whereas 30 years ago it was realistic to say we can evacuate. Today it is no more. So we may have big change in the context, and that necessitates the need for engaging people when this decision is taken. So this is under discussion. There is a law that is under preparation, and we are fighting a lot to push the idea of public consultation in this framework. So more or less, I think I have completed what I wanted to say. Yes, of course, I've quoted this morning. Here in Ukraine, you have a solid ground to push the idea of public consultation. Of course, in the context of emergency, as I said this morning, there are many reasons to engage people. At the stage of preparedness, of course, because at the stage of preparedness, who will say this emergency plan is working? We have heard earlier this morning that the local communities, they are in a very good position to say it works or it doesn't work. So we need the people, evidently, because they are the only ones who can say this is appropriate or not. And then at the stage of emergency, it's not only that we need to consult people, because they will operate the emergency phase. They will all be involved directly then. They will protect themselves, or they will behave irrationally, and they will expose themselves unnecessarily. So it is crucial to engage people. So if in general, as I said earlier, there are many reasons to engage people in nuclear safety, in nuclear emergency, it's obvious. So it has to be really acknowledged and translated, as I showed earlier, into the law, into the various stages of the decision-making. You must obtain to have some rights of consultation and some resources to be able to develop your own capacities, your own expertise, and make investigations like Mama 86 is undertaking now with NGOs and with local communities, to be able to check the reality, the actuality of the nuclear emergency plan. Thank you.
Дякую. Дякую, Жіль. Жіль у нас ще раз з'явиться в нашій дискусії, оскільки він робить ще одне повідомлення, але поки дамо йому можливість відпочити і передамо слово Тетяні Дурановій, яка представляє Словаччину, інститут ВУЄ, якщо я правильно вимовляю. І, власне, вона теж вона фахівець з питань аварійної готовності та реагування і в аспекті ядерної безпеки. Її доповідь стосується